Hello, family. If you are a parent, this is an awesome book for you to read. The Whole Brain Child. If you are a parent, if you're considering being a parent, it doesn't matter if you have one kid, if you have a whole soccer team of kids. It doesn't really matter because the principles that you're gonna learn from this book are principles that you can apply with just one kid or with many kids, and also these are principles that you can apply for yourself as the parent, as well as for yourself as an individual. Good day. Hello once again. Welcome to the family. We discuss here different books. I share my summaries of these awesome reads, guys. I look at different self-help books. I look at African literature. I look at different books. So do suggest as well if you have a book that you want us to look at. Do suggest. We are a reading family. Okay, so today we're looking at a book, The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Daniel Siegel, as well as Dr. Tina Payne Bryson, an awesome team. And in this book, they discuss 12 revolutionary strategies to nurture your child's developing mind. And like I said, these are not just strategies to be used for your children alone. These are strategies which you can implement in your own life because, hey, this brain is a phenomenon tool that we all have to use, and the more we know how to use it, the better life will be for us all. Okay, so the book is divided or is discussed in 6 chapters. You find the 6 chapters which discusses different aspects of this whole brain concept. The first chapter is talking about developing mind. It's saying parenting with the brain in mind. The second chapter it says 2 brains are better than one, integrating the left as well as the right brain. Third chapter, building the staircase of the mind, integrating the upstairs and the downstairs brain. And the fourth chapter is kill the butterflies, integrating memory for growth and healing. And chapter 5, it discusses the United States of me, integrating the many parts of the self. As well as the last chapter talks about the me-we connection, integrating self and other. Okay, so this is an awesome read, guys. And here follows the summary. Okay, so The Whole Brain Child, chapter 1, like what we said earlier, is parenting with the brain in mind. Now, the authors discuss how a lot of times parents, they parent for how good the child is going to look, how well built they're going to be, grooming the child from, the exterior and how they look good and how they dress good and how they have awesome stuff. Now, that's good, but we should stop doing that. We should stop the go get ice cream approach when things go wrong, but we should actually, as parents, be in a position to groom the child, from their brain. Okay, so their brain should be fully and well developed. The right foundation needs to be established as soon as possible, so that as they add on to it more building blocks, they're going to be growing in the best manner possible. So parents normally prepare the body but lack to prepare the child's mind, and so this is what this book challenges or hopes to raise awareness on, that let's not just focus on the exterior, let's look at the interior growth of the child as well. So when things go wrong, let's stop making kids feel as if we're brushing away their challenges and their problems. Kids have problems too, and we need to teach them from a young age how to handle those problems or those challenges in an efficient manner, in a proactive manner, in a manner that's not reactive, but in a manner that is even conducive for them and everyone else for the long term. So we should allow our kids to deal with incidents that affect them and help their brain to understand, why they have to make certain decisions, why they have to choose a certain course and not the other, and not just be forced to do whatever it is we want them to do, but encouraged. And we should help them understand the why, so that next time, they will be making those decisions by themselves. And so we explain certain concepts, and if we don't take the time, again, to to deal with the issues which children have, they can easily turn into triggers. So they talk about this as well in the book, where a child has gone through a certain incident in their life when they were younger, and because it was not resolved, it has now turned into a trigger. And so now this child is withdrawn, or this child has certain behaviors which could have been prevented had the issue been resolved in the best manner possible. So the brain, as we all know, has got a left and a right side. We also talk of the reptile brain, which is the instinct and survival brain. What is it that I need to do right now in order for me to survive? I'm hungry now. How can I eat now? As well as we have the mammal brain, the one that wants to cuddle, the emotional, relational kind of a brain. And so basically, the brain is discussed to have 4 personalities, and all these personalities need to be properly groomed. So yes, a person needs to understand how to survive, but yes, a person also needs to think logically, and yes, a person needs to establish their relations as well, and yes, a person needs to be aware of their surroundings. So the more we groom the brain holistically in all its components, that's how we can, seem to reach out and make a difference in how a person is going to be well developed. Okay, so again, the 4 different parts is the logical, the emotional, the reflective, which is the irrational, the emotional side, as well as the reactive, which focuses more on survival. The trick is to learn to integrate all the 4 parts of the brain, because all of these parts of the brain are there for a reason. So how to find a way to make them work together, how to find a way to use all these components, when the situation calls for it, because you find yourself in different situations and you need to act in a certain way, but you will need to draw from the strengths of all of these components, and so how to integrate the brain so that we're able to use these components in their best manner possible. So children, for example, will throw tantrums, who are withdrawn. These are 2 extremes. One can be throwing tantrums and another can be, highly withdrawn. Children who are emotional, children who are chaotic are usually a result of a lack of an integration. In other words, and disintegration. So normally that could be a result of one component of their 4 component brain being explored and the others lacking. So it could be a result of them focusing too much on their emotions and then being too emotional, and not feeding the rational side of the brain as well. So all these sides need to be well attended to. And on the other side, you find a child who is absolutely rational, who will act and do whatever it is that they want to do, doesn't really consider anyone else, or will be absolutely insensitive because the emotional part of their brain was not well nurtured. No one was there, to help them to deal with emotion and feel that it's okay, to be emotional as well, in a very controlled manner. And so all of these can create problems if the balance is not well achieved. So when we talk of this integration, essentially we're talking about the need to strike a balance. So there's the vertical integration as well as the horizontal integration, and we want kids to have both the vertical integration as well as the horizontal integration. Luckily, the brain is discussed to have neuroplasticity, which is, a component of the brain that allows it to adjust and be flexible. So the brain is plastic. It can stretch it. It's flexible. You can, pull it in different sides. It can adjust to certain environments. It can fit to certain molds. That is an advantage of our brains. So in other words, our brains are remoldable. The neurons in our brain, they fire up, due to certain experiences. So the more we are exposed to certain experiences, is the more, the neurons are fire up that are linked to, or that link to that experience, and, that sort of lead how we think and how we even behave in a certain way, because that plasticity, that neuroplasticity, has been developed in a certain way because of the experiences that we have gone through. So The experiences we go through, they connect with the neurons to form a wiring of a brain. You find a person is wired in a certain way. They believe that the world is this way. They do things in this way. And that's because of their experiences. So it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that, the experiences have led them in a certain way. And should they change, the wiring of the brain, they could be acting in a different way. So this doesn't just happen in childhood, by the way. It happens all the way through our lifetime. So you find that a person in their old age, if that was not attended to, if nothing changed, they become staunch in a certain lifestyle or in a certain belief. This is how things are because their experiences have shaped their thinking in a certain way. They could develop a fear of trying things out. They could develop a fear of risk. They can develop a certain fear and certain triggers as well because of that kind of experience. As well as if you let kids go out and you encourage them to go out, and let's say you don't enforce any rules and you just let them be, that could actually shape their minds and thinking in a certain way that, what, I do whatever it is that I want, and that their wiring will be a bit different. So it is advisable that you expose your children, you place them in an environment which is always going to be conducive to their holistic growth. So for example, allow them to explore nature, allow them to have an experience of technology, but also don't allow them to only focus on the conveniences of technology like smartphones and the use of internet all the time, but also allow them to understand the importance of how certain fundamentals work. So what if there is no internet? What else can I do? What is it that I can that I can use, or what skill can I develop, and not just using the conveniences that are there, but how can I even expand on some of those conveniences? What contribution can I make? So you can allow them by exposing them and teaching them certain skills and allowing them to do certain things, allow them to learn through play, allow them to have other experiences based on the different environments that they can be exposed to. So, for example, the music that they listen to, the sights that they see, the people that they live with, the books that they read. Okay, these are kind of things which are very, very important in shaping how a child turns out. So also discuss your child's emotional experiences with them. This is absolutely important, and it helps you to understand any conclusions that they may have drawn of certain experiences that they have gone through, but also it also helps you where there's a need to assist in any healing that may be needed, so that it doesn't become something much bigger, and ultimately you have to involve third parties. But if you get into a culture of discussing certain things with your child, how was your day? Basic things like, how was your day? Tell me what do you think of this? Tell me, how did you feel when this happened? Get yourself and your child in the culture of discussing these kind of things. Allow your child to feel free to expose their emotions to you, so that you can also understand, and where possible you can assist your child even in how they are growing emotionally. So, this also helps with emotional intelligence. You're able to help teach your child, to understand that, hey, you don't have to act out of anger. This may have happened. It did not make you feel good, but you don't have to act out of anger. This is what you could do differently. Maybe this is what your child did based on how they felt. And so you can already intervene and tell them or advise them what is it that they can do next time, and help them to understand, the different sides of the emotional coin as well. Okay, so for example, a child who's exposed to TV and video games will be wired differently from a child who's exposed to sports and nature and music, and will be wired differently from a child who's exposed to a family setting, lots of friends and relationships. So those kind of children get to grow in different ways because of the experiences that they constantly are exposed to, because the experiences do do link with the neurons in forming the wiring as a result of the brain's neuroplasticity. So it's also important that we help, children and their brain become more integrated so that they can use their mental resources to their full capacity. So if their if their mental resources are well groomed, and the different components are well integrated, and there's that balance that's struck, they will be able to use them to the best manner possible. So, simply being present with your children and helping them to reach their brain integration, they'll thrive emotionally, intellectually, socially, and they'll be better decision makers because they will have the ability to consider certain things when they make their own decisions because they understand the value of the different components of even themselves. So, integration basically is mental health. So, when the brain is healthy, basically that is a result of it being integrated, that is a result of a balance that's been struck in all the different components of one's brain. And chapter 2 discusses that two brains are better than one, so integrating the left as well as the right brain. Now we know that the left brain and the right brain have got different functions, and so this chapter is essentially highlighting the importance of ensuring that all the functions of the left are well groomed, and that the left is working well, and that all the functions of the right are well groomed, and that the right brain is also working well, because ultimately you need both sides of your brain to work well for you. It's not a matter of saying, hey, I'm a left brain person or I'm a right brain person, and so I should actually focus on either side of the brain. No, one needs to be able to focus on both, and one needs to groom a child so that they're able to use both sides of the brain. Now, quick review. When we look on the left brain, okay, so the left hemisphere of the brain, now this focuses on the order and the logical thinking, the literal thinking, linguistic thinking, linear thinking, order, lines, lists, okay, all of this happens on the left side of the brain. And when we look on the right side of the brain, or the right hemisphere of the brain, this is now a non-verbal, it's a holistic, visionary, big picture, emotional, memories, imagery or images side or thinking kind of a brain. And so one needs to be able to use both sides of the brain. And so you don't just focus on the big picture and you're always in dreams and you're visioning, but what about the practical steps? What about the things you need to do right now? What about, what needs to be accomplished, the deadlines and managing certain things? But also, you don't want to focus on just, the things that you need to do now. You also want to be able to begin with the end in mind. What is that end? So essentially, both the left and the right brain have to work together, and they both have to be groomed together. So again, it's a matter of survive versus thrive. Survive will be, okay, what is it that I need to do now? What is absolutely important for me to do right now? But also thrive, how can I develop myself? You need to use both sides of your brain to be able to arrive at your highest level of potential. Okay, so we also learn about the corpus callosum, which links the two brains together. Now, this is where the balance happens, the integration happens, and that is what we want. We want these two sides to be well balanced, because sometimes the best that you can do for a child, who hides their real emotions, right? Again, emotional side is their right brain, with words that speak against what they're passionate about, is to use nonverbal language. So positive facial expressions, the tone, etc. Because sometimes you find that, some kids will hide what they're feeling. Are you hurt? No, I'm okay. How is this affecting you? No, I'm okay. I'm good, right? So sometimes you find that kids will hide, what they're actually feeling, and they'll use words to hide what they're feeling, because it doesn't really matter. But if you allow, a kid, and you teach them that, hey, it does matter. Your emotions do matter as well. You don't just have to focus on, covering up and being good all the time. You can be human. And so when you touch a child like that and you make them feel the warmth of, that gentle touch, and even the posture that you give them, coming down to their level, your own facial expression, the tone that you're going to use to reach out to this child and tap to this child, from that emotional side. Or if the child is already in that state of an emotion, and they struggle to use their logical brain to focus on what is it that they need to do, you reach them at where they're at, and you help them to move from where they are to where they need to be. So that just means you as a parent as well need to also understand the importance of having both your left and your right hemisphere well developed, so that you're able to transfer such skills to the kid and be able to parent holistically as well. So you get the two extremes, like the left brain extreme as well as you get the right brain extreme. Okay, so one who is more on the left brain extreme, does not really care about what they feel. It's all about what needs to happen. But the one who's on the right brain extreme is absolutely sensitive, absolutely emotional. It'll be so easy to cry, right? But if you also able to intervene using that balance, striking the balance, showing them how to reach a balance themselves, you are helping that child. So again, make a child feel your connection as a parent. Don't just be giving orders and telling them what they need to do, but connect with them on a deeper level. Let them feel your presence, let them feel heard, let them feel understood. Let them feel that you as the parent get them and you are actually looking out for their best interests, because believe you me, for the most part you are, if not all the time. Okay, so when your child comes to you with an emotional flood, now this is when they have too much focus on their right brain, and they just, everything, everybody hates me, everything, the world is so gloomy, why, right? So you don't respond with logic. Okay, you don't come and say, hey, don't say that. You're absolutely wrong. No, because at that point, the child is deeply in their right brain. You need to be able to reach them where they're at, starting from that emotional side as well. You don't have to have an emotional flood yourself, but start off from that emotional side, give them a hug, let them feel that, hey, I feel that connection that you're feeling. I feel the emotions that you're feeling. And then from there, help them to move from the emotional side to the logical side. Okay, so let them feel felt, and cared for. So that gradually, when you progress with them to the logical side, you will always maintain that connection with your child. So again, the importance here is first connect and then redirect. So when a child is coming to you and they have whatever challenge, you should notice, are they, in their logical side? Are they in their left brain hemisphere, or are they in their right brain hemisphere? And how can I connect with this child before I direct them to where they need to go? Okay, so again, if a child is coming and they absolutely, this is what needs to be done, and so is not understanding me, and they need to be doing this, you can, if they're coming to you already with that logic, you can connect with them with logic and help them to, to arrive at the emotional side as well. So first connect, and then you redirect them to where it is that they need to be. Okay, so it again highlights the importance of you as a parent being involved in the process of grooming, because the more you groom your child for these concepts is the more you also will see your own flaws, because hey, no one's perfect, but you will improve the more you are aware of this and are grooming your child for them as well. So when you talk about incidents that emotionally affected your children, and you keep telling them and you retelling them, whenever they bringing them up again and again, you help to empower their integration. You link their right brain and their left brain in a healthy and integrated way. Now, this is applicable for situations where a child has gone through a certain trauma. Maybe a child was there when a certain car accident happened, and then they don't really know what happened. Maybe they lost a family member and so much had happened. And so when that had happened, the child may have drawn certain conclusions. There could be certain things that they don't really understand, but they've got some memory of what happened, but they cannot really, put it in words, and they don't really know what to make of it. Maybe a child has gone through a very difficult or painful or messy divorce, and there's certain questions that this child has. So it's very important that whenever the child brings this up and they're asking you about whatever it is that they went through, you don't brush it off. You don't shout at them like, hey, I told you this yesterday, why are you bringing it up again? It is a journey. Okay, this is them working on dealing with this kind of stuff. So you need to be patient with them. You need to discuss these concepts with them and help them to understand, whenever they have a certain question, help to answer that question, to the best of your ability in the most truthful manner possible, because when they ask a question like that, they will be storing the answer, in an archive that they keep for a very, very long time. So make sure that you're going to give them truthful accounts. Make sure that you're going to give them something that's going to, give them the understanding that, hey, they can move on. They don't have to be stuck in whatever that they went through. It's part of life, but it does not have to be the end of life. They can continue on from that. So you help to discuss those concepts with them, as much as possible, as many times as they bring it up, but help them to move on from that, and that is also creating a bond that you have with them, but it also helps them to, to close certain incidents and not have unnecessary triggers of what have happened in their lives. This can help them, to tame certain emotions. When some emotions come up, the very answers that you give them, they will be using for themselves. That, okay, no, this is what mommy said, and so those emotions will not overwhelm them. But if mommy or daddy is just pushing them away, then a lot of those emotions would overwhelm them as well. So teach kids to tell their stories, so they better perceive their own emotions and experiences. So again, certain things happen. Allow kids to, to share their own account. This is what happened. Ask them, hey, what happened? What did you see? What did you experience? Hear it from their point of view. And the more you do that, is the more, again, you are also helping them to develop their own emotional intelligence, to develop awareness of different interpretations of even the same account. So it helps when you creating even those kind of experiences, as points of discussion and as ways to just empower how you communicate with your children. So talking with kids about painful events that affected them is not overwhelming to kids, but it's actually what they need to perceive what's going on and to begin their own process of healthy healing and recovery, right? So you should not get tired of, discussing. If they want to bring up something that happened, even if it's painful to you, do take the time to discuss it again, because this is part of their process of healing. This is part of their process of recovery, their process of closing down or closing up what happened, and safely having a way to conclude what has happened, and it's a way for them to move on from that. Now, there's something also which the book highlights, the importance of not underestimating the power of a story to hold a child's attention, because, children learn through stories. When they listen to stories, they form images of what you're talking about. You get those visionary thinkers. And so when you're telling them a story, they can see the characters, they're having this mental movie as you're talking of whatever story has happened. And so when you, have something to tell them these stories, let them understand, let them see, and detail the story as much as possible. Give them the details, let them, form the right picture in their brain of what would have happened, and encourage them also to have and share their own stories. And so as a parent, Fight the urge to deny and dismiss your child's emotional experiences, and rather acknowledge them and encourage them to share them and assist them to ensure that they are accurately, the rightful accounts of what would have happened. Because a lot of times parents themselves don't want to discuss certain things, and so they brush off. Hey, let's not talk about that. No, you're too young. When you're older, we're going to talk about that. No, they're not too young. They went through the experience. It's a reality. It's probably something that they're thinking of when they're not talking with you, and so they need to have a way, to answer their own thoughts of whatever experience that they would have gone through. And so don't tell them, no, that didn't happen. No, it happened, okay? And maybe if you know why it happened, this is why it happened. If you don't know, you know what? You're human too. But the reality of the matter is that it did happen. And so that needs to be acknowledged. They should not feel as if, they are being emotionally negated. They should not feel as if what they think and feel is just sidelined. It doesn't really matter. It does matter, but they should just be helped to move on from that. So teach your kids about the two sides of the brain, right? The left and the right brain, but most importantly, how to use these different sides, right? And how these sides work. So again, the children are not too young to learn these concepts. If your child can talk, if your child understands certain things, you can teach them how their own brain works, so that they grow having the right understanding of how their own brain works. So if you can explain, okay, using visuals, if you can explain to your child how their own brain works, say your child is 5 years old, 6 years old, even 4 years old, if you can explain that to your child, it says a lot about you, by the way, and how creative you can be, but you'll be surprised at how much they will retain of that teaching, and how that will help them in understanding their brain and making even the right decisions, and acting in much better ways when their brain comes and wants to dominate, because you know what, it does at times. So you want to be able to teach them that the right brain, it deals with the emotions. You want to teach them that the left brain deals with the logical side, and you want to teach them the importance of using both their left as well as the right brain, so that even though when sometimes they feel angry and they want to say certain things, they should consider how it could affect other people, right? Even though sometimes they'll be angry, they want to fight and throw a tantrum, they should understand that the anger, if they're acting out of anger, it can be clouding the words that they use, the prefrontal cortex. It can be clouding the words that they use. It can be clouding, what could have been a better way to act or react in certain things. So teach them that and help them to understand how their own brain works, as well as how they can best integrate their own brains. And that is in chapter 2. Okay, so a lot of times when we talk of the brain, we talk of the left brain and the right brain, or the left and right hemisphere. And in chapter 3, we look at an interesting discussion of the upstairs and the downstairs brain. Okay, let's look at this section. So chapter 3 is talking about building the staircase of the mind. Okay, so we talk of the limbic region of the brain, which is the one next to the bridge and the nose area. It's responsible for basic functions, as for example, breathing, blinking, innate reactions, or more like the survival stuff, right? This limbic region, and fight or flight, and strong emotions such as anger and fear. So all of these happen in the downstairs part of the brain, which is, again, like we said, the limbic region of the brain. Now, there's also an upstairs part. The upstairs brain is different, which is the cerebral cortex. Now, this is where, the thinking happens, and the imagining happens, the planning happens, higher brain maturity thinking. So the upstairs brain allows you to see things more clearly. So it's responsible, again, for making sound decisions, and planning, like we said, control over emotions and your body, as well as self-understanding, self-regulation and empathy and morality and maturity. So when a child's upstairs brain is working well, she can regulate her emotions, she can consider consequences, think before acting, and be considerate of other people. And therefore a person's brain works best when the downstairs as well as the upstairs brain are well integrated. Once again, we talk of this word, integration, striking a balance. So this is again the vertical integration. Initially we talked of the horizontal, which is from left to right, and now we're looking at the vertical integration from downstairs to upstairs. Now, the upstairs can regulate the downstairs. So, for example, leading to less reactive, but more proactive behavior. And so, when the downstairs brain, which is there from birth, okay, child is born with the downstairs brain. You don't have to teach a child to move their hand from a hot stove. You don't have to teach a child that they will fall on this part. They will fall once, but next time you'll find that they're being a bit more considerate and stuff. So there's certain things that you don't even need to teach your child because they are born with these things, which are a lot of the downstairs brain components. The upstairs brain, however, is developed over time, and it isn't fully matured until a person reaches their mid-20s. And so the upstairs brain essentially is a work in progress. So which is why you're able to see how a child is growing based on the kind of decisions that they're making, based on the kind of things that they do, because the more they act in different ways, the more they reach and they're able to tap into their upstairs brain. We're able to understand that they're growing, right? It yearns more to growth. So the behaviors and skills that we want and expect our kids to demonstrate, like sound decision making, the control of their emotions and bodies, and empathy and self-understanding, and all these upstairs brain components, we need to be able to teach them. We need to be able to cultivate, and create conducive environments for them to think that way, and feel the need to act in that way, from a young age as well. So that explains why some get stuck in their downstairs brain, because if the downstairs brain, if they don't get taught to move from downstairs brain to upstairs brain, even when in anger, you don't have to act in anger. You can actually allow yourself to tap into, to empathy, or to tap into higher thinking even when you are in anger. These are the kind of things which children can be taught. It takes some time, but it is important that it gets taught and exemplified as well. So we talk of the amygdala as well, which is, apparently the size and shape of an almond. An almond, by the way, is some delicious nut. Yes. So the job of the amygdala is to quickly process and express emotions, especially, those strong emotions like anger and fear. It is watchful for times where we might feel threatened. If you are threatened, you will feel in a certain way. But you can take control, or this part of the brain, it can take over when it senses danger. Okay, so you find a person that there's that adrenaline, right? They're feeling this danger, and they want to act in a certain way. If they don't allow themselves, to think above what they're feeling, right, it can overwhelm them as well. It can take over if they don't allow themselves to, to practice a higher level of thinking. And so, them acting in reactive ways, and them allowing their brain to take over, and acting out of anger or even out of fear, is a result of downstairs brain thinking, and not moving up to upstairs brain. There's also a difference between upstairs tantrums, which can be controlled and are done intentionally, and downstairs tantrums, which for the most part, one cannot really control, because or it ends up controlling a person. If a person is throwing a tantrum out of this deep anger, it can cloud them, it can cloud their thinking, and they can act in ways which they also never imagined possible. But if they're throwing a tantrum from their high level thinking, they're able to to act and be able to stop themselves and manage and control how they feel as well. So again, the importance of connecting the downstairs and upstairs brain. And also when your child, for example, is throwing a tantrum and they are clearly in their downstairs brain, not thinking of anything else, just focusing on what they're feeling, and that's what's important, and that's the only thing that's important to them. It's advisable that first connect with them and then redirect. So connect with them first and then redirect to what they need to do. So connect with their anger. It doesn't mean that you're going to be angry too, no, but connect with this emotion that they're feeling, right? Make them understand that the emotion is real, and what, you do empathize with them on the emotion that they're feeling, and then move them from that emotion to where they can think soberly and clearly, so that they also can feel the transition from the downstairs thinking to a higher level upstairs thinking. Okay, so it needs, again, for you to understand and be able to exemplify and be able to be better to have better control of your own emotion as the parent. So for downstairs tantrums, again, you want to be calm, you want to connect with them, and engage with them where they are, and help them to move to a higher level of thinking. So upstairs brain is like a muscle, by the way. It needs to be exercised. So small little things that you can do with your child, to help them make the right decisions, small little things which they do, which you can help them question, did I do the right thing? How could I have done this differently? What could I have changed? And, what consequences could this have attracted, and how, could I have acted in a much better way? So you want to help your children to assess their own actions as well. So in future, they're able to make better decisions. So again, this needs to be exercised, and it needs to be used for the child to be able to grow well with it, and for it, to be able to assist the child so that they reach that higher level of thinking sooner. So a strong upstairs brain balances with the downstairs brain and is essential for social and emotional intelligence. Now we know when we talk of emotional intelligence, we know that it is absolutely important. It is something that even in corporate, is still discussed, that we want people that are going to be able to deal with situations, to handle pressure very well, and that happens when they have better control of their own emotions, and they're able to make the right decisions in a calm manner, whatever it is that they're going through themselves, and not allow their own experiences to, to affect their performance. All of those things are part of emotional intelligence, which, is needed from when a child is young all the way, to a person's entire lifespan. So you need to help your children to exercise the upstairs brain, exemplify it, like I said, but also help them, to also question how they're also doing things and the decisions that they're making. So basically, allow your children to make decisions themselves. Don't just decide everything for them. Okay, so the sound decision making is equal to a way to empower your kids. You empower your kids to make their own decisions, and you're able to, to help them, for in future as well. Because basically, you're not grooming people that are going to be doing what you say all the time, but you're grooming adults, young adults. You're grooming leaders of the future. So help them to be able to, practice higher level thinking, to practice the right decision making, and be there to facilitate the process. Okay, so controlling emotions and the body is absolutely important. You must teach your kids what happens when they're not crying, and how they can make the right decisions, even when they're feeling sad, right? So you get some kids that are going to just want to cry, or, they're just angry. And so because they're angry, nothing else will happen. Because they're crying, the world must stop. Help them, to understand that it doesn't have to stop at this. This is what you can do differently. This is how you can adapt to the situation so that you actually are learning and you're moving on from that. So self-understanding, very important. Talk with your kids and entice that answers come from them. Don't tell them what they should say, but they should be the ones giving you the answers of what they're going through. Encourage them to to keep journal and a record. They should keep a record of their day-to-day experiences. Set a culture where you both have a journal and you can write down. At the end of the day, you can discuss, this is what happened in my day, what happened in your day. Care to talk about it. Creating that healthy foundation for record keeping, which is a very good skill, by the way, you're teaching your child, but also in that communication, so they know that, I can discuss my day with my parent, and I know that my parent will be the first person to give me advice on certain things, sound advice, so that they don't just receive advice and tips from their peers, but you as the parent should be the one who's influential, in the advice that they receive. So that needs to be a culture that you need to groom and, create an environment for it. And empathize with them, encourage discussions, of what they went through. It's okay, whatever they want to tell you. Don't make them feel judged. Don't negate, whatever they're telling you. Listen and put yourself in their shoes, and move on from there. So you want to be a living example. Kids are actively learning from observing you. Never think that you can tell them what they need to do, but practice it. Live out what they should do. Okay, so they're learning from you even when you're not saying anything. So when we change our physical state, so for example, when we exercise, we can change our emotional state. So your physical and your emotional states are linked together, and like the downstairs brain, we said, and the upstairs brain, they should be linked together, and both need to be well exercised. So practice with your child, and smile. You want your child to smile, so have them see you smile. And take slow breathing breaks so that they understand again the importance of just calming themselves down. If they're feeling angry, let them see how they can move from anger to being calm again. They can take breaks. They can breathe deep breaths, breathe in and out. This is how they can calm themselves. And it's okay. They can smile, they can be happy. They should be seeing all of these from you. So again, let them hug them, right? Let them feel that embrace, and exemplify all that you want your child to live by. That is awesome, and discussions that we're learning from chapter 3. Again, in the comment section below, do share your findings, do share where you are agree or disagree, any of your experiences. I definitely would like to hear your views as well. And if you like what you hear, family, and you'd like to help the family in the tribe to grow, and you'd like to see more of such content, remember to subscribe, like, share this content, so that I also will keep on uploading this. The more I see your interest in it, is the more I also will be uploading this kind of content, these kind of books. And again, you can always share in the comment section below. I definitely will read them, and this is how I'm able to serve you best. Moving on to chapter 4, Kill the Butterflies, Integrating Memory for Growth and Healing. Now this is where again I learned a lot from our writers today, our doctors. This is awesome stuff that I also have learned from. So how you find yourself having certain memories of certain things which happened when you were young, and sometimes you just mind your own business and something happens, or some word, you hear some word being said and you remember something that you never even thought of, or which happened years, decades ago. So in this section, we get to understand why that is the case. So we learn here that the brain remembers things by associations that it has made. So it doesn't really keep, files stored of certain things, but it associates certain experiences with certain feelings and thoughts and to certain things. And so you find that when something comes up, when a certain smell comes up, it takes you back to a certain experience. And so that's how, the association is formed, and that's how you can remember. Okay, so it brings up these memories and feelings whenever those things come up. So, for example, I just found this very, very fascinating. Each and every year, we used to attend this camping. It was this camp meeting. It was a church camp. We'd attend in a huge farm, and there'll be many people gathered, and we'll be there. And it happened in the same time of the year. So, for the most part, the feel of the sun was the same. Almost each and every year at that time period. And later on, years later, I'm not privileged to be attending those camps anymore, but whenever that season comes, wherever I am in the world, it takes me back to that experience. I find myself, reliving, experiences that I had back then, remembering certain things that I used to do, and, certain faces, would come up. Oh yeah, I remember what happened on this day, and so on and so forth. Just by merely the feel of a certain season, because each and every year, this experience used to happen at this particular season. And so when that season comes, wherever I am in the world, it's such an amazing phenomenon. But the brain has made the association, so it brings it up. Similarly, I was involved in an accident an accident where I was driving a small car and I was hit by a truck. And so I found that I almost formed a trigger, and because a certain association was made. And so whenever I was driving near trucks, I'll find myself remembering what happened. I find myself feeling, certain things which I felt at that time because a certain association was being made. Similarly, you find, when someone mentions sour lemons, even if you were writing or you just had eaten or whatever, all of a sudden your mouth waters because you know the taste of sour lemons. And so the association is formed in your taste buds. Recall sour lemons are sour, and so these are the taste buds which will be affected, and so we bring that sensation as well. So it's such an amazing phenomenon, but this is what happens. So memory is not direct photocopy of what happened, but it is vulnerable to distortion. Okay, that's an amazing part as well, and is an association made while one was in a certain mind frame. So as much as the memory is formed, you can actually distort it as well, right? So for example, this is what you went through, but you can sort of make a little change to it, like, okay, actually this is what this is what happened. Oh no, this is not what the reason why it happened, this is the reason why it happened. You can analyze, assess what you went through, and sort of lean towards a certain wiring, whereas if you don't do that, you can maybe yearn towards a different wiring. So the ability for us to distort our own recollection of certain things, our own memories, helps us again to shape the conclusions that we formed of those kind of memories as well. So we learned in the section of the implicit memory as well as the explicit memory. So the implicit memory being the subconscious memory. Sometimes you don't realize that you formed a trigger of a certain experience. You don't realize that something actually affects you because you concluded that you're okay, but then you are not okay. And so when you recall and you do something without even thinking about it, and it's just there, it's embedded in your memory. But again, there are positive sides to this. For example, muscle memory. It gets to a point where you don't have to think about it anymore. Or when you are driving and you drive the same route every day, you find that you remember this route, even when you're not focusing and paying attention, you just find yourself making the turn at that same place, because again, that memory is there, that implicit memory, you have tapped into that. So it's an unconscious recollection of certain things. And then you find the explicit memory, which is now an awareness, like this is where you are consciously making a recollection of something, So when you think of something and you really collect the associations which you have formed, of whatever it is that you want to think of. So for example, when you write an exam and you want to remember, you definitely will be using your explicit memory because you are consciously wanting to recall what it is that you remember. And sometimes some of what would be in your mind would have been stored subconsciously, right? Maybe you were not really intending to keep it, but it kept stored because of repetition and things like that. So there's a lot that gets involved. But it's important again that we understand the implicit as well as the explicit memory so that we understand how we can tap into both of them when we need to. So again, a reminder, neurons that fire together wire together. Okay, so that's how the wiring comes up, because certain neurons which are associated to certain things, they fire up together, and then you find that maybe if there's more neurons linking to a certain, experience, you find that you are wired in a certain way because of that. So it's in transitioning from implicit to explicit memory that the real power of integrating memory brings insight, understanding, and even healing. So you want to be able to move from your subconscious thinking. You want to be able to move to your conscious thinking. Subconsciously, this is what your body has just gathered up and has formulated as a conclusion of this, right? But consciously, you can actually decide, is this what you want to keep? Do you want this to be a trigger? Or do you want to use this? Do you want to learn from this? And do you want to not be long term affected by this? The power is with you as well. So you want to help your child to understand how their brain works and help them to understand that the brain does not always want you, to just be the best that you want to be and accomplish everything and reach your potentials and stuff. Your brain wants you to survive, right? It's all about how can we survive. And so you want your child to be able to understand that I don't have to just be stuck on survival mode. I can move to a higher plane. And so I can take better control of my own brain. I can be the one who's in charge of my own brain. Okay, so I teach them to be aware that they can talk to their brain, right? That self-talk is very important, making the conclusions using the conscious mind, and then teaching the subconscious that, by the way, this is what, we're headed towards as well. And it helps to bring, a higher it gives you the advantage and allows you to be able to have the power over your own brain. So this is something that you can have your child do every day, have your child practice with your child, have them see, this is what I feel, this is what, I would love to do, but this is what I should do. I know I should be doing this and I can talk my brain to doing this. I really don't want to study. I really don't want to do it. I don't feel like it, but you know what? I can talk my brain into doing whatever it is that I need to be doing. So again, the problem with an implicit memory, again, we said the implicit memory is the subconscious memory, especially of a painful or a negative experience, is that whenever we are not aware of it, it becomes a buried landmine that can limit us in significant and sometimes even debilitating ways. Because, if you are keeping this painful implicit memory and it's linked, it's associated with something, and then chances are whenever that something comes up, you will feel in a certain way, and it can trap you, it can limit you from making certain moves, or from acting in other ways, or maybe even being adventurous or trying something new, because you have something that's holding you back. So you want to have awareness, you want to teach your child awareness, they should understand what is going on, why are they feeling the way that they're feeling, and what could be influencing that, and how can they have better control of what they are feeling and going through. So don't try and make your kids avoid or forget, what painful experiences that they've gone through. No, it's not about forgetting. In fact, that does not work, because they will not forget. They can suppress it, but they will not forget it. So rather teach them to integrate these memories, with logic, and lead them to learning from the memories, and understanding why they happened, and not being trapped by those memories, but to move on from those. And so we talk of the hippocampus, or hippocampus, I believe is the hippocampus, which works to integrate our implicit and explicit memories so we can better understand the world around us and ourselves. See, our brain is just made in a phenomenal way. As much as we have components of it that can work against us, we can use the very same brain to work for us if we understand how it works. And so again, the hippocampus, like different puzzle pieces that if you have different memories of in a certain experience, there's a collection there and different associations and a scattered memory. The hippocampus can help us to collect these memories and put them together, and form one account of the memories, an account that we would have better control of. So hippocampus, it helps us put together the scattered implicit memories so we better can manage them and make them more explicit, right? And make them more, and be more conscious and more aware of them and act in better ways. So you find that sometimes when you want your child, to sort of relive certain experiences or retell certain stories of what they went through, you find that sometimes your child is so affected that they don't want to talk about it, You don't want to leave your child at that state. And so one example is given of how you can help your child to discuss this, whereby you're going to explain to them that, hey, I'm giving you this remote, okay, so we're watching this DVD player, and you have the remote, so you decide when to fast forward, you decide when to rewind, you decide when to stop. You've got the remote, the power is in your hand. But let's watch this movie, okay? So the child gets to tell you what happened, and you can sort of help them suggest certain things, so that you help them, we help the discussion to be going, but you allow them to feel that they're in control of what has happened. And so you encourage them. You feel you need to keep quiet, if you feel you don't want to talk about something, you can pause, and then you can also assess where they feel uncomfortable, which part is affecting them, what is it that they don't want to talk about, and then you can also help, to help them to tell the part they don't feel comfortable to talk about. Again, you don't have to say all of it, but part of it, and see how comfortable they can maybe to share part of it. But ultimately you want them to see that at the end of that entire story there was a happy ending. And so you want to show them that in the end, though, this is what happened, right? And that was a good ending, right? And so when they're able to see that, hey, in the end the ending is good, it will also sort of help them to want to go through with the process. It's like when you're watching a movie and you know that it's going to end well, you know that the main character is not going to die, no matter what they're going through, that they will survive against all odds. And so you're excited to watch how they're going to survive against all odds, but ultimately in the end they survive, right? And it becomes a happy ending and they live happily ever after, right? So help the child to be able to make that kind of a conclusion as well, to relive even those painful experiences, but they're able to see that, but in the end, it's not worst, right? In the end, maybe I learned something from it, or in the end, this is what I take from it, okay? Help them to be able to, to move through that. And this is something that you can use as something practical in case your child does not want to talk about their experiences, especially the painful experiences. So by use of the hippocampus, again, you can integrate. You can integrate your implicit memories to explicit awareness. You want to always strike the balance. That's highly encouraged, highly important, and highly useful as well. So, we learned in chapter 4 the importance of remembering to remember. You need to remember. And so, a practical example to help you with this, teach your child to, make a collection, to keep writing, keep a record, right? Write in a journal. This is what happened. This is what I remember. This is what I did. This is how I felt, and things like that. So when they remember that, it helps them, it helps their implicit memories to connect with their explicit memories, and it helps them to to draw better conclusions of experiences that they would have gone through. Again, this can be something that you guys are doing together. It can be a bonding session where you both are closing off the day by writing down what is it that you have learned in the day, or in the week, advisably at the end of the day, making it a daily practice. Okay, so it's critical to tell the stories of what happened. Okay, you don't want them to just be lingering around. They need to be told. They need to be relived. They need to be told. So bring them to explicit awareness, and not merely leave them, as just floating puzzles in your head, but put them together. Okay, and again, when you do that, you are integrating the implicit memory as well as the explicit memory. You're gaining more control, of what you are going through as well. So that is awesome, chapter 4. By this point, family, you probably can see that this is not a book just for kids. This is a book which is empowering even us as adults. Awesome reads, a lot of awesome findings that I came across, and I'm sharing some of the ones that were meaningful to me. Okay, chapter 5 talks about the United States of me, which is integrating the many parts of the self. Okay, understanding who you are. It's absolutely important, guys, especially if you are to make the right example or be the right example for a young one to follow. Okay, so in chapter 5, we look at I am versus I feel. A lot of times, you find that a child feels, clumsy, and then they conclude that they are clumsy. They should be able to distinguish between how they feel, right, in comparison to who they are. Okay, so you may feel in a certain way now, but that doesn't mean or that doesn't define who you are. Okay, the task the task may be hard for you at that time. You may feel as if maybe even stupid, or oh my goodness, why didn't I think of that? But that doesn't mean that you are incapable. It doesn't mean that you are stupid. You may have acted in a silly way. Okay, so a lot of times one of the reasons or one of the challenges that we come across is children having some withdrawal symptoms because they have problems with making a distinction between who they are and how they feel. Okay, so we look here in chapter 5, the importance for one to realize that there are many different aspects of who they are. So, for example, you can be a parent, you can be a friend, you are a sibling, and there's certain things that you're good at, there's certain skills that you have, there's certain dreams that you have. And if one area doesn't go very well, it doesn't mean that it should mean that you stop, everything that you're doing. No, you can focus on something else, right? There's always another area that you can focus on. So we look here in chapter 5 and we see an illustration of a wheel which has a rim as well as a hub. So the hub is more like the center, and at the center of this hub will be you. But then, from, you, the radius from you, hub, to the sides, you find that you're reaching the different rims, okay? You're reaching the rim of the wheel. And so there's different parts. There's different sections. If you were to draw some lines, from the rim to the hub, you'll find that, there's different sections that a person would have. So each and every one of those sections needs you to be able to attend to it, needs you to be able to focus on it. And like I said, if one is giving problems, it doesn't mean that you ignore it, because you don't want to have a wheel which has got certain parts which are dented. No, you want to groom all of it. But if one is giving you problems at this point and you really can't do anything about it at this point, you can always move on to something else which will be more uplifting for you, which which you have better control over at this point. So you realize that you have other options as to where to direct your concentration and your focus on. So don't get stuck on the rim, get back to the hub, right? Revisit the who you are. And if this didn't work, this is who I am. But what is it? What else can I focus on? What can I do? Because again, the more you focus on your strengths, at times you find that they're able to even attend to your weaknesses. So if a failure or hardship occurs in one area, don't let that define who you are, right? Isolate the incident and see it for what it is, okay? So be able to deal with it for what it is, but don't, link that to who you are. No, it's just a minor part of what you could have experienced, but it's not the who you are. So again, we talk of neuroplasticity, which we said the process from the neural activation to neural growth and strengthened connections. Okay, so we find that the neurons are able to rewire, okay, based on certain experiences that they encounter, and based on how you fire up. Okay, if you are always focusing on this, if you're always attentive of this, chances are, the neurons linked to that, will be more groomed, and you find that this will be more and more enforced. It's more like a person who says, I don't like this, I don't like this, and they somehow attract what is it that they're saying they don't like, because they're putting a lot of energy on what they do not like. So we learned here the importance of focused attention, and we see how focused attention leads to the reshaping of the brain. So you find that discipline leads to reshaping of the brain. Typical examples, you find how they train different animals. They train dogs. If a dog is trained, for hearing, you find that this dog can hear better, than the dog which is trained for sight. But the dog trained for sight, can see better, than the dog trained, for hearing. So whatever it is that we're focusing on will be, better groomed. We will act in better ways on what we discipline ourselves and we focus on. So it also explains why you find that psychologists will be more attentive. You find that teachers will be more patient. You find that doctors will be more analytical and more accurate in certain things. And you find that taxi drivers or cab drivers will be better with directions. It's not because this person was in most cases born with that. It just means that because of their discipline, their focus on a certain area, and that focus has led to them developing a certain skill, or it has led to that part being better groomed in themselves. So we teach our kids, we help them understand that feelings come and go. Okay, so they're real, right? But they're also temporary. Okay, you feel this way is not I am this way, this is who I am. Okay, so for example, rain is real. Okay, you feel the rain, but it will come, it will go. Tomorrow there'll be sunshine, or a minute later there'll be sunshine. So these things, there's a time for everything under the sun. So these things, they happen, but they should never be a parameter of who or how we define ourselves. And our kids should be taught to understand that as well. All right, so we learned again of the acronym SIFT, which is S for sensations, I for images, F for feelings, and T for thoughts. So with sensations, you want to ask yourself, what are you feeling on your body? Okay, so do you feel hot? Do you feel cold? Right? Is it chilly? Okay, what are you feeling? That's that sensation. As well as images, what do you see in your mind, right? Or with your eyesight, what do you see? I see a room. I'm outside, I see the beach. Okay, you're aware of that. As well as the F for feelings, how do you feel, right? I feel sad, I feel lonely, I feel excited, As well as T for thoughts, what are you thinking of? Okay, so we want to be in a position where we are always aware of our environment. We are present, we are in the moment, when we are aware of what is happening around us, and we're making the right conclusions of what it is that we are experiencing. Okay, and we learned again of how dopamine, which is that feel good hormone, it helps to reward, those neurotransmitters, and it enables, communication between the cells, so that you find that because something was rewarded, you tend to want to do it again, right? You did something and you felt good about it, you want to do it again, okay? So, which is why it's also important that, we reward ourselves, okay? And let's reward our kids, incentivize them. We want to reward that good behavior, which we want to keep seeing, okay? And the more we do it, the more we would be experiencing more of it, and the more we'll be confident in it, okay? It's like the cycle of more. Okay, as well as this again, very, very important, and adults will know, okay, especially when a child has got siblings, there will be those fights, but kids should be taught on how to manage conflict. So conflict management is very important. You want to teach kids to read nonverbal language and not just what is being said. Sometimes, fights happen because there was a misunderstanding, right? I said this, but this is what I actually felt, and I didn't really say it, and now this person didn't understand, and I'm disappointed, and I'm angry, and I'm gonna start a fight or something else, okay? So sometimes it can be avoided when a person is able to read and assess certain situations, and people and what they're going through. And it's okay to teach kids to say sorry for what they do, all right? Whatever it is that they do wrong, they should say sorry. But also, it should not stop at the sorry. It's not about, hey, I've apologized and so it should be okay. No, but what is it that you're going to do about what is it that you've already done, okay? Because sorry doesn't fix a broken glass. In some situations, it shouldn't end at the apology. Something beyond that needs to be done, How can we fix this, okay? And also, be aware not to do it again. So they should be taught, they should understand consequences. They should understand, responsibility for their actions as well. So we learned again about mind sight, which is seeing you with your mind, okay? So it's important that you are able to see with your mind, so you see your own emotions and you see how someone else, is feeling as well. So you seeing, beyond just eyesight, but you're seeing deeper than that. You're able to see, feelings, able to see, on a higher level of sight. Hey, and you don't have to raise your kids the way that you were raised, because you know what? A lot of times we were raised by parents, maybe who were not informed of this, who were also raised by parents, maybe were not informed of such, or who there were certain limitations. And nowadays, when we live in an information era and there's a lot of information dissemination, we actually can raise our kids in much better ways. We can expose them, to certain things which will allow them better awareness of what is going on in the world around them. So that's the beauty of being informed, and let's teach our kids to also understand what is happening around them. Okay, and so we looked today at The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Daniel Siegel, as well as Dr. Tina Payne Bryson, and we looked at the different chapters by which the book is discussed. But also in closure, let's look at the 12 strategies that the book mentions. So the 12 revolutionary strategies to nurture your child's developing mind. I'm going to mention the strategies, and I hope you have learned a lot from the book, and do share the one that was appealing most to you. So the first strategy is connect and redirect, surfing emotional waves. Number 2 was name it to tame it, storytelling to calm emotions. Number 3 was engage, don't enrage, appealing to the upstairs brain. Strategy number 4 is use it or lose it, exercising the upstairs brain. Number 5 is move it or lose it, moving the body to avoid losing your mind. Number 6, use the remote of the mind, replaying memories. Number 7, remember to remember, making recollection a part of your family's daily life. Number 8, let the clouds of emotion roll by, teaching that feelings come and go. Strategy number 9, the acronym SIFT, S-I-F-T. Remember we said S, sensations, I, images, F, feelings, and T for thought. Again, strategy number 9, which is paying attention to what's going on the inside. Strategy number 10, exercise mindset, getting back to the hub. And strategy number 11, increase the family fun factor, making a point to enjoy each other. And number 12, connect through conflict, teach kids to argue with a we in mind and not just an I. What is it that I want to accomplish all the time? Family, thank you so much. I hope you have learned a lot. Like I said, these are awesome books that I love reading. Do share if you have a recommendation that we can look at together next time. Thank you. Awesome. Have a lovely day.